In our previous discussion, we've seen a transition the individual has to make from an egoistic, childish, and unconscious state into one that is more so dualistic. The dualistic phase is accessed either in puberty or in the period of youth, and it refers to the moment where consciousness becomes expansive enough to process more of life to ready the child for independence. We've seen also how the many types of psychic disturbance are the result of a clinging back to childhood. A narrower level of consciousness for the person doesn't have to worry much, where he's reliant on a caregiver. In the following segment, we're still gonna talk of youth and midlife, but detailing other features of them. The questions being asked are along the lines of how to avoid getting stuck in a childhood level of consciousness. Further, what is it that helps us mature better psychologically? What is it that grants us access to this higher consciousness? Before we could answer such inquiries, my fellow viewer should know the reason as to why he must strive for a higher consciousness in the first place. Psychic expansion implies a better ability at solving complex problems in real life, to swiftly extract meaning from an ambiguous philosophy, enhance social skills, and a better understanding of the world overall. It also results in a strengthening in willpower and the creative and intuitive processes. Like, you start to have a feeling for the right thing to do, for what to look for, more often in any situation. Now that we know why higher consciousness is important to aspire for, let's look at some ways on how to reach it. People stuck in a childhood level of consciousness are childlike grown-ups who still live in the egoistic phase. Some of them remain reliant on their parents, but what's most common is they have difficulty empathizing because they're often self-preoccupied. In their reality, they haven't yet acknowledged the quote-unquote other, the new and strange. An example could be the shy one, the insecure, the narcissistic, personalities which represent a hurdle in social life. It's real hard to entertain that you are alone in the world as an adult when your parents are still alive or when you still live beside them. Live as though your parents were dead. Come to terms with uncertainty and misdirection. For a while, a period of disorientation of being lost is necessary to grow independent, because adulthood is merely a state of being acclimated with chaos. That is, the burden of responsibility which was once monitored by the parents. The duty of independence is to keep at bay childlike unconsciousness and open doors for higher consciousness. So, to untangle oneself from childhood, one has to welcome a new perception of reality, that he or she is on their own, that uncertainty is part of the fabric of existence. Reiteration. The egoistic phase is about ego maintenance, the dualistic phase is about ego adaptation to the outside world and making room for further development. Of course, to win for oneself a place in society and so to transform one's nature that it is more so fitted to this existence is in every instance an important achievement. It is a fight waged within oneself as well as outside, comparable to the struggle of the child to defend his ego. That said, you can in fact encounter others that are successful in spite of being stuck in that egoistic phase, example being narcissistic personalities. This is why Carl Jung illustrated how external success doesn't necessarily lead to higher consciousness. He noted society's emphasis on achievement and its neglect of inner development of personality, like getting unstuck from the egoistic phase, going from parent reliance to self-reliance, learning to welcome different opinions, to be empathetic, to share. Jung observed how in their 20s the majority are led by society's narrative, that is, to strive only to become useful in the workplace to achieve concrete goals. And this is why most of us grow socially unsavvy, awkward, unsympathetic, or narcissistic. For character development is way too subtle of a change for the pragmatic mind to notice. Achievement, usefulness, and so forth are the ideals which appear to guide us out of the confusion of crowding problems. They may be our lodestars in the adventure of extending and solidifying our psychic existences. They may help us in striking our roots in the world, but they cannot guide us in the development of that wider consciousness to which we give the name of culture. In this quote, he's sort of alluding that accomplishment in general is not a bad thing, but that only certain types of experiences are what helps us gain higher consciousness. As far as my understanding goes, these experiences are which involve higher levels of ambiguity, novelty, and uncertainty. He did not illustrate them plainly, but from what I understood, striving to understand more complex insights from philosophical books, for instance, challenging oneself mentally, physically, aspiring for what makes us tremble, learning to welcome the unknown, seek out new experiences, for uncertainty constrains us to think outside the box, which translates into better problem solving. And the better able to solve of the world, the further able we are to grasp more of it. This is higher consciousness in a sentence. The biggest mistake is to restrict oneself, as I said, to professional life, and blind oneself from the pleasures of life and/or the novel and uncertain. Gestalt therapy emphasizes the importance of maintaining, so to speak, a fluid personality. It underlines the idea that character becomes corrupted if the person turns complacent. The road to an authentic, higher self requires positioning one's life in that meeting point between inertia and fluidity. In other words, we should never cease learning and proclaim that we know everything about so-and-so topic. The authentic self lies in that ephemeral state of not knowing anything and always being open for more in spite of being an expert. Stagnation happens when the major problems of youth and the beliefs of the person seem to have been served a definite solution. For instance, the stuck-up who take the religious or scientific perspective as the ultimate explanation of life, as an either-or type of matter. Religious or scientific dogmatism, that is. The serious problems of life, however, are never fully solved. If it should for once appear that they are, this is a sign that something has been lost. The meaning and design of a problem seem not to lie in its solution, but in our working at it incessantly. This alone preserves us from stultification and petrifaction. The major problems of youth should never be fully solved in order for the individual to keep striving and for the personality to retain its flexibility. By problems here, Jung might be alluding to belief systems, the meaning of life, challenges and aspirations, etc. In the period of youth, the longer we go about living by a certain belief system, the likelier that one's personality will construct itself around it. And so it is also the ideals, convictions, guiding ideas and attitudes which in the period of youth let us out into life for which we struggle, suffer and win victories. They grow together with our own being. We apparently change into them, and we therefore perpetuate them at pleasure and as a matter of course, just as a child asserts its ego in the face of the world and in spite of itself, occasionally even despite itself. This is why it is crucial to choose the most suitable path in your 20s, for you will literally become what you believe in. Say for instance, you entered midlife with a fragile character, fearful, weak, dependent. At a certain point of your development, your personality solidifies around these traits and are then made permanent. In your 30s, precisely around 34 and 35, some habits and beliefs become impossible to change. The mind begins the process of including the most exercised so far habits and beliefs into the core fabric of your personality. Because your energy diminutes in your 30s, and making certain routines more so automatic is a smart move from the mind to free up some mental RAM. So what does this mean? Well, whatever habits and beliefs you chose to live by in your 20s, in your 30s they become second nature. So better choose carefully what person you'd like to be in the future from now on. It also means that people can help, but no one can point out the right path, that at some point you have to make a choice. And with time, it is gonna start to feel subjectively like you were right about the road you've chosen, because, as I've mentioned, the more we exercise a certain belief system, the further ingrained it gets into our character, and the more true it'll seem to you. I really appreciate your attention, guys. You can support the journey with a simple like, comment or share if you enjoyed this video. And I'll leave you now with the last quote from Carl Jung. The nearer we approach the middle life and the better we have succeeded in entrenching ourselves in our personal standpoints and social positions, the more it appears as if we had discovered the right course and the right ideals and principles of behavior. For this reason, we suppose them to be internally valid and make a virtue of unchangeably clinging to them. We wholly overlook the essential fact that the achievements which society rewards are won at a cost of a diminution of personality. Many, far too many aspects of life which should have also been experienced lie in the lumber room among dusty memories. Sometimes even they are glowing coals under grey ashes.